Hello, I'm live. So if you read the title and you still clicked on it, proud of you. And let me make the case. So it's going to be a little bit longer video. I suggest you watch the whole thing, but I'm gonna have to read some from books. But first I'm gonna play this video. It kind of sets the mood for uh, where we are heading today, in the topic part of it, uh, and you'll understand. So the Trump administration, like, is talking about violent, and it's not new. I think this is the clip I'm about to show is probably a few months old, but like we're gonna go through it, and then also on the recent news on the DOJ and the Second Amendment um, case where they were trying to the NFA and the tax thing repeal it, and how they've pretty much uh, they did the opposite of what they said they were going to do and supported the gun control, um, and you know, seem to be opposing overturning the NFA. So, or the undoing it. So, but let me play this first video, and um, and then we'll go from there. Shrink this down a little bit.
Loyalists. Now, all through history, there have always been plenty of tools who love supporting their tyrants. And in this situation, they're the people who tend to cheerlead whatever their leader does. And as Gordon pointed out, this has just been a tactic. This is a tool of propaganda to twist the view of things in people's minds. And of course, it's a tool to expand power. He said, whoever is lawless is disloyal. And to boast of a loyalty to disloyalty is strange nonsense. A paradox first invented by solemn and pernicious pedants whose trade it is to pervert the use of words and the meaning of things, to abuse and confound the human understanding, and to mislead the world into misery and darkness. And Samuel Adams also understood that they do this intentionally to flip the meaning of things upside down. And of course, it's always to expand their power. But we oftentimes, he wrote, perceive such signification assumed by those who find the wrong use of these words conducive to the support and increase of power and gain, that it is difficult to tell whether loyalty be really commendable or sedition blameworthy. I mean, it's a lot of finger pointing. It makes things confusing for the average person. And as a result, as Gordon explained, the good guys are seen as the bad guys are seen as the good guys. And again, this is a tool. He said, in short, that all the instruments and partners of his crying crimes are loyalists, and all who defend law, virtue, and mankind against such monsters are rebels, and assuredly damned for preventing or resisting actions which deserve damnation. And this little extra piece here closes out nicely. And thus, men become rebels by acting virtuously against the worst of all rebels, who are restrained by no consideration, human or divine. Now, he understood, and so did Samuel Adams as well, that the whole thing is a scam. This is a method. They want to make loyalty all about a person who wields power rather than a love of liberty and the Constitution. For these people, support them and then you're awesome, but don't you dare oppose the leader. He wrote, it is indeed a trick more than a mistake. I mean of those who would assert or rather create a sort of loyalty to ministers and make everything which they do not like an offense against their master. Now, going back to another person who was very influential on the founders in the
All right, so Does that sound familiar? Like, ah, that's this. Like, we live in this situation, especially if you're on, like, if you're on the right, right? So, uh, especially like Donald Trump, anyone that disagrees with him, automatically becomes a rhino or evil or this or that. Like Thomas Massey, and then Marjorie Green Taylor, something like that. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. I think it's like, uh, yeah, I think it's MGT or something like that. Anyways, it's an abbreviation. Um, like it makes anyone that stands against him is all of a sudden, even if they were for him before, but if he does something that they don't agree with, and they say it, like the Epstein files, it took like the Trump administration, like people in the Trump administration ran on releasing the files, and then people were like, "Well, the judge blocked it," but when it came time, that's not what they said. What they said is, "Oh, there's no files." He just had some porn on his computer. It was all about him, or like are we still? Then Trump himself, are we still talking about this guy? Like we're gonna take time and still give this guy time. Like retarded. Um, it's just retarded. And the fact, and then the moment he said that, I watched Trumpers flip, like people that I had seen like during the Biden administration, and the first Trump, like, they were like, "Oh, release the files," and then now they're like, "Oh, well, we don't, we can let the files go. We don't want to ruin everything else at the administration. We don't put a stain on the administration, right? We don't want to point out uh, that they didn't do what said they were going to do. That they uh, they didn't fulfill that promise, right?" And then they started covering that they were covering for like pedophiles, people who actually did go. And then they're like, "Well, not everyone on the list is a pedophile." Like, yes, that's true. They can be cleared, but uh, you need to release the list unredacted of the people who did business with him and who are on the list, right? Like you can redact the victims, right? But not the his clientele and all that stuff. Like, and then people are like, well, what if they didn't do anything and they're just doing business? Like, they'll get cleared in the investigation, right? Just like Trump is a perfect example. The Democrats tried to release an email that made it look like, and they redacted the name, right? And then like we found out that she had already testified, and she like she cleared Trump's name. So like the victims know who the perpetrators are. So the investigate, like, you don't have to worry about that. Like, we can actually clear the names. We can put out the names that are for sure guilty, right? Um, and like that was it's crazy to me to watch Trumpers all of a sudden defend not releasing the list, or and then defend these wealthy people who are the elites, and it goes to show that they're just sheep, and they'll go along with whatever the shepherd, which would be the Trump and his goons. Um, and I'm not a Democrat. I didn't vote for Camilla. I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for either one because I knew Trump was going to have issues with the Second Amendment. Like he always does this. He makes these big promises, and then he always goes the opposite, right? Um, uh, when it comes to like Second Amendment, and now talking about speech, and this should have been a warning sign because I'm going to play the video. His first ambassador, or 2017 and 2001, Friedman, or I think that's how you say his name. Uh, he was talking about how imprisonment for, like, if you spoke like about like because he I think he mentioned people like Candace Owen or something in it. I will play the video, and he was talking about jail for that stuff, like and then like we're starting to see the hate crimes. So Charlie Kirk's death actually opened up the door for hate crimes, and normally it was, or not hate crimes, hate speech. and normally, so like before that was the left, and the left were like, oh, there should be, laws and hate speech, laws against hate speech. You should be able to prosecute it, all that stuff. And on the right, you'd be like, no, you can't do that. It's free speech. But now that Trump and their administration is in power, and Charlie Kirk, and like you can't say like stuff bad, which I actually like. I think I love Charlie Kirk, right? So, but I do believe if you want to like make fun of him getting killed, if you want to do all that stuff, like that's you're perfectly fine. That's protected speech as long as you're not like threatened. Like we already have, we already have categories for that. You can't like call people to shoot somebody else, right? You can't incite violence. You can't like we have those categories. Like hate speech is there's no such thing as hate speech. It's literally speech that if whoever's in power doesn't like, or one side that's in power doesn't like, and the other, you know, that's how it's going to be used. Like there's hate speech is not a thing. You can say those things like people making fun and doing the gestures of like Charlie Kirk and like it's bad taste. Like and honestly, they need to be able to say that because if they hadn't say that, like I've watched video after video of people who were on the left who've seen people making fun of Charlie Kirk's death, and it made them realize that they were on the wrong side. Like these aren't the people who I wanna be with. The people who cheer the death of a guy maybe said stuff I didn't like, but he had a family and stuff, and you're gonna make fun of like it's. Uh, but they had to be able to say it. If they didn't say, like, if they weren't allowed to say it, like, you wouldn't have the reaction that you have to be able, like, let people express their views. That's how we change. It's how, like, it's how white people wake up. It's how you actually get to argue things. Um, like, if you have to be afraid that something you said is hate speech, like, that's crazy. But that's what the left used to do, and now it's the Trump administration talking about they're going to pursue and try and prosecute the DOJ. Pam Bondi talking about. Well, I'm gonna play the video, but it's it sucks. It just sucks. These people suck, and I've been saying that like I believe um uh I believe the two-party system is just a system of control. Like whatever so what they do is they switch back and forth. So if they can't get something done, there's too much resistance when like Joe Biden's in power. Well, now you have Trump, and like Trump can. Pam Bondi's still pushing the federal like if you got a real ID in your state, right? That's a federal ID. That's not a state ID. And it's the first step to a digital ID, which will have your medical information, all that on it. And like, remember in the lockdowns uh, um, where it's much harder to control you, where they're like, oh, well, who has the shot and who doesn't, right? With a digital ID, like they'll have that information instantly. They'll have a way to scan and see that you didn't have the shot, right? Or even just pull it up. They'll just be able to pull it up um, themselves because they'll have access to that through your like ID number and all that. Like we are moving in the wrong direction, and I'm not like the real ID is something that's been it was put in motion before. Uh, it's like they've been trying to do that for a while now, but like it's being pushed through, and it's being realized in our time. So as I watch the Trump administration, and I see the Trumpers like they're talking about like there's some I've had someone be like because I criticize Trump on like these things that he does that are un-American, and they'll be like, oh, it's either we have to stay the course uh, or the other side's gonna be loading you on trains. I'm like, ugh, like that's not how this is gonna work. Like no matter who's in office, they're working, and I don't. The trains are much further off, right? Probably closer than we think, but further than we think. But you know what is close is the electronic jail that they're putting us in, right? The like China has the social credit score, like we have ESG scores already, and they're working. Like we'll have like it's not very far, especially with the digital ID. Then you have the all the cameras they're putting up. Like they're building the framework in both Republican and Democrat states. Like in both sides, like it doesn't like they're building the framework. They're betraying. Well, they're not betraying because to them they're like lower class elites. That's how they get in there, and they do the bidding of the big elites, right? The ones with money, and that's how they get rich. Um, but because they don't think they're going to be caught in the trap, and then because notice. Like it's not a complaint until it's a senator that gets spied on by the CIA, or, right? Until it's a Democrat or a Republican that gets spied on. Like in Indiana, the swatting has been a thing, but like it wasn't important until someone from uh, the state legislature legislature got swatted. Right now, it's this big thing. Oh, political violence is not allowed, right? And it's like why wasn't it a big thing until it was someone from until it was a politician. Like it drives me nuts, and like Trumpers are fucking retarded. Like I'm getting to the point. Like I dislike Trumpers, like loyal Trumpers, as much as I dislike Marxists or fascists. Like I mm, and I hate I hate Marxists and fascists. I hate the ideas, and like because it leads to death, right? It's the same thing with like the Trumpers. They're supporting policies now and actions that is treason against our Constitution. Like because you violate the Constitution, that's treason for the government. That's the government committing treason against the people, right? Uh, but all right, so I'm gonna play this next clip of Pam Bondi talking about going after hate speech and anyone who says um, hate speech or whatever. So I don't know. See if I can get this to play real quick.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything, and that's across the aisle.
Now, Attorney General Pam Bondi is going so far as to say that the Justice Department would go after anyone who engages in what she deemed hate speech. The Attorney General later clarifying on social media that hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment, and that she describes as a crime.
Do you see more law
Not that. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. Okay, so she had to clean it up because she messed up and talking about hate speech. She opened up the door and she's like, "Oh well, if it crosses into like no, that's not hate speech. There's a whole different that's incitement to violence, or I mean, it's incitement to violence, or it's actual threats and violence. So if it's a threat and if you threaten to do something and I mean, and it does cross into violence. Like obviously, we're not talking about like, uh, yeah, like you took action, or if you're calling people to take action, like, yeah, you're responsible for that. That's our like those are our illegal like that's already covered. So You don't have to do anything. Like hate speech is something completely different. So either she misspoke, which I don't think they did. I mean, even but you it's like it's no coincidence. And when so you're probably like, oh, see, she clarified it, but this actually makes the comments of the ambassador early. It makes it make more sense as to what they're saying and why they're pushing like this anti-Semite thing so much. And it's just speech. Like they're saying it like it's dangerous because it's just speech, right? Just like and that's why I always found funny about Ben Shapiro and stuff like that because when it's trans stuff and they say, oh, if you misgender, it's gonna, they could commit suicide or puts them in danger, and he always blows it out like, no, but like anti-Semitic speech is his transgender. Like, oh, if you say something bad about Israel or the Jews or whatever, then you're putting us in danger, and it's a dangerous situation. Like, no, like in America, like anti-Semitic speech is free speech. It's like you could be anti-Semitic. You cannot like the Jews. Like, you could even say that the H man was right, right? Like without penalty. I'm not saying that he is, right? I'm just saying that you can say those things, and it's not hate speech. It's not hate speech at all. Um, you could say you don't support Israel, that we shouldn't be giving them money, and that's stuff that they're calling like hate speech. That like you should like honestly, I believe you shouldn't be able to have any dual citizenship and be in our Congress. Like you can't have loyalties to other countries and be in any state, any political position in the U.S. if you have a dual citizenship. Um, But I will say this: I don't know. You've been hearing the translations of the H man's speeches and what he's saying, and I'm like, dude, maybe the AI's got to be changing some of the words or something. But it like it's possible. But I'm like, yeah, I don't know if it is translating them like uh, the way it is. Like the thing is that some of the things he says like reflects the Jewish state today, like how they're manipulating, how I mean, even Charlie in his text message when he was talking about um, the Jewish donors and how they're being they're being the stereotype, and that because of them that he might. And that's the thing is the Jewish donors, like they're not religious, most of them, some of them are, but like they actually do fund the subversion of America. They fund the gender programs, the gender ideal, the Marxist programs, these other things, while also paying off the people on the right. And you're wondering why we can't like undo Obamacare, why we can't push back, like undo the things that the left has done the way the left undoes the right. Because once you have an administration that's Republican, the left get in and they instantly start undoing tons of stuff that the right does, but the Republicans can barely like do anything. Like and it's almost as if they don't want to. As if the majority of them, um, it's just a show that when they go up there, they're like, "Oh, we don't like it," and then behind closed doors, they're like, "Oh, yeah, actually, like, because it gives them more power. They're growing the government's power, and they agree on that." But so then we'll move to the Friedman guy, and I thought I would surprise you with another video. See if I can fix this again. Good. Mm-mm-mm. Stacy's mom got it going on. I watched it. Sorry, I was watching the Ghouls Boys, and they were talking to a goat or something, and the goat's name was Stacy, and he's like, I know your mom, and it was anyways, continuing.
But I also just need to reinforce my bona fides. I don't think there's a Jewish person my age that has a longer or a clear record of support and sympathy with the Jewish people or opposition to Jew hatred or a love of Israel. But I have a disagreement with Ambassador Friedman here, and it's part of a trend and a pattern that I think we need to mention here on this program. Let's play cut 261.
As my predecessor said, I condemn anti-Semitism on the right and on the left. I'm an equal opportunity condemner of anti-Semitism.
You're alluding to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, none of them are any good on the right. On the left, I don't like any of these anti-Semites, and I'm not shy about it. But the government, the United States government, or the government of France, or the government of any other country, has the power to rein in anti-Semitism in a much more effective way. And you know, people say, well, you know, the governments are not in the business of changing the way people think. That's true, but, you know, to my thinking, most people who are, you know, anti-Semites, most of these people running around, we're not going to win their hearts and minds because they don't have hearts and they don't have minds. So, you know, how are we going to, there's no reason to think we're ever going to convince them, but we can deport them, we can put them in jail, we can make their lives miserable, we can cut off their funding, and that's what the Trump administration is doing for the first time.
So I think he's conflating two things. I'm going to give a charitable view first, that he's conflating domestic American free speech, First Amendment protected speech with the importation of foreigners coming into the country. So he was talking.
Boy. And the funny thing is whenever they talk about the H-man, they talk about how he dehumanized the Jews and, you know, they made them not people and treated them like, and then now look at what this ambassador did. What did he do? The people who disagreed with him, that he called anti-Semites, even though they're not anti-Semites, it's not that they're like, but that voiced objections to like Israel and their operations here in the United States, and recently, within like, I think it was this year or whatever, or I don't know, it's recent. One of the head like cyber guys, you know, got arrested here because he was trying to diddle little girls, right? Meet up with little girls and diddle, or I don't know, something like that, allegedly. But like, notice how he said, "Oh, they don't have a heart and they don't have a mind." Notice how he dehumanized them. He made that we can't change it, but we can imprison them. We can punish them for it. Like, that sounds a lot like the H guy. It's like they have a lot in common. You know, like they think along the same lines of silencing people who disagree with the way they want things to go. All right. Or that have a bad view of their government and their administration, cabinet. I don't know, but yeah, it's crazy to me. And so Pam Bondi, like the hate speech thing, it makes more sense. And how not the hate speech, and then like how he's talking about anti-Semitism and how the Trump administration is deporting people with visa. So I didn't know this, but I learned this, that if someone is here on a visa, or legally, they came legally and they're here on a visa or whatever, like, you can't deport them because they have anti-Semitic views or whatever. They're protected by the First Amendment speech laws. Right, the protections. So, like, it is. I mean, I'm upset. Like, I'm pretty upset. And you're like, oh, well, why would you want to defend someone who, you know, talks about like Israel or whatever, or talks bad about Charlie, because that's the whole purpose of the First Amendment. It's not there to protect speech you like. And the right used to always say this to all the kids. It's not for the speech you like. It's for the speech you don't like, right? Like these old, like now, and these, and especially the older Trump ones, like Trumpers, who are like, yeah, he's going in. He's like, he's like, we got one down when they, Marjorie, right, dropped out, and then can't think of his name. I just forgot his name. He's from Kentucky. He helped with the Epstein bill. It'll come to me, but you know what I'm talking about. And he's called him a rhino. And they're like, oh, if you're not with the president, you're getting not kicked out. I've seen posts like that from Trumpers, and I'm like, you're a fucking bootlicker. Like, this is exactly what you were against. Like, but like people are now, it's more about your team winning and your guy winning than it is about your freedoms. And that's how we lose freedoms. And like, just like the left, when you're talking about Marxists, it's the same way. Like, it's the Trumpers are the same thing. They'll support him until, I mean, they probably support him even if they get the hate speech thing, and then maybe they said something and they go to jail. This probably like, well, it's that damn Pam Bondi, not the like. It'd be the same thing, and like, but there's still more like, and and this is honestly probably where we're heading. So I'm gonna play this clip real quick. And
Germans are lesser than Americans. I just don't like your policies.
Well, that is racist because you would say that like Germans are shitty.
No, I think Germany is a crappy country for a multitude of reasons.
Why is Germany a crappy country?
Well, you don't have freedom of speech is one of them.
We have freedom of speech.
No, you don't. You don't have freedom of speech. You do not have freedom of speech. You jail people for unpopular speech. You jail people for offensive speech. Yes, you do.
No.
I don't.
No.
Okay, I'm not going to argue with you.
Accurate.
It is 100% accurate.
You're lying. Like I live.
You do not have freedom of speech enshrined in the German Constitution. It doesn't exist. It's not a thing.
Freedom of speech.
Let me continue on down the list.
I worked in media. I worked in news media. We have freedom of speech. We could write whatever we wanted to.
No, you don't.
No, we do.
Let me ask you this.
I studied politics in Germany. I
Sure.
studied the system. What you're
Right.
saying is a bland out
So-
lie.
No, it's 100% accurate. People are arrested in Germany, jailed for speech.
No.
Yes.
They're arrested if they use hateful speech. Because of course they are. Okay, off. So you want Nazis?
You guys started it. Come on, that's okay. Let's not get heated. Anytime it gets heated, we have to calm it down. If you want to calm down.
No, I'm sorry, but this is up. We have Nazis.
So
and
people are arrested for hate speech, though.
people are arrested for hate speech.
You don't have freedom of speech. So I think Germany's shitty. Thank you.
No, I don't shake with you. You're
okay.
a liar. You're a fucking liar. I'm sorry, but where's the line? I'm sorry, where's the fucking line?
Like, you see, but see, that's the disconnect. Is she's like, oh, we have freedom of speech. It's like they only jailed for hate speech, which is it's basically whatever isn't like there is a is either, I don't remember, it's in the UK somewhere over there, and basically a dude tweeted that a certain official was a penis or something like that, and the next he got hit with the hate speech and the police were there arresting him for it. Like, it's crazy, but that's where we're heading. And you have to remember that unless I'm glad the backlash came out and she was forced to backtrack on her Pam Bondi was forced to backtrack and put that clarification in there. Oh, I didn't mean that. I just meant if it leads to violence or if it's inciting, no, duh, that's already we already have laws against that. It's not hate speech. but like, because you have to push back. Make sure you always push back, because any power you give the Trump administration now, the next Democrat administration has those powers too. So if the DOJ can go after people for saying stuff about nasty stuff about Charlie Kirk, then they can go after people for saying nasty stuff about uh, the president, or like anything at all. Like, anyways, but all right. So, and the thing, so, and this is why I hate faction. Like, you see me rant and rave about factionism, or factionist, which is like, I guess, be partyist today. But factionists are like the Democrat and Republicans, the people who always vote Democrat or their side, no matter what. They don't protest. They go along with the party, because they're like, oh, we got to win, so I got to just vote because, this is the guy. He's not very good, but I'm going to vote for him anyways, because what's my other options? But you do have other options. But and then as we've seen, like we talked about, like Trump, demonizing people in his own party that go against, like, they did the fight to release the Epstein files. The congressman from Kentucky who didn't vote for the big beautiful bill because he said it just increased spending way too much. And we're for decreasing spending. Or that's at least what the Republicans say. But so I'm going to read this part because this is about the left, and the book is the Devil's Pleasure Palace. Let's see. Marcuse came up with the particular nasty concept of repressive tolerance, a notion that has guided the unholy left since the publication of his essay by the same name in 1965 in A Critique of Pure Tolerance by Marcuse, Robert Paul Wolfe, and Barrington Moore Jr. It might be best described as tolerance for me, but not for thee. But let Marcuse explain. The realization of the object of tolerance would call for intolerance towards prevailing policies, attitudes, opinions, and the extension of tolerance to policies, attitudes, and opinions which are outlawed or suppressed. Surely, no government can be expected to foster its own subversion, but in a democracy, such a right is vested in the people. In the majority of the people, this means that the way should not be blocked on which a subversive majority could develop, and if they are blocked by organized repression and indoctrination, their reopening may require apparently undemocratic means. They would include the withdrawal of tolerance of speech and assembly from groups and movements which promote aggressive policies. Stop. Sorry, my cats. Aggressive policies, armament, chauvinism, discrimination on the grounds of race and religion, or which oppose the extension of public services, Social Security, Medicare, etc. Liberating tolerance then would mean intolerance against movements from the right and toleration of movements from the left. So, repressive tolerance. Like, so what? Why would I read that? Because we're actually seeing this on the right too. Now, like, that's what's going on. Is like the idea. So as soon as someone calls out, like, not releasing the episode, and then it's like, oh, are you really talking about that? Like, oh, there was no, and then if you criticize them or whatever, and like, so why can't I remember the congressman from Kentucky? You know who I'm talking about. I can't remember his name for some reason. And Marjorie, right? They did the Epstein thing, right? And like they were painted as bad guys. Like, and it's interesting. I'm like, those are the most, or not her, but at least the congressman from Kentucky, uh, which I cannot. I just can't remember his name for nothing, for nothing. Um, uh, like he's one of the most conservative uh, candidates there is. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying he's perfect or whatever that he doesn't. I'm just saying that, um, like he actually he's a pretty good representation of what the Republican Party said they stand for, but don't but really don't. The majority of them. Uh, But like you can see, and then you see it among Trumpers how they like anytime you say something against them, all of a sudden it's no longer tolerated, even if it's correct, even if you can point to the evidence that shows that. A lot of them, oh well, it's you got to stay the course, like, and they don't tolerate, even though it's uh, like it should be tolerated, like even though they're saying what's right. But then on the flip side, when the other president does it or the other side does it, all of a sudden it's intolerable. Like, or I can't tolerate it. But if it's your side, oh, now it's okay. Like, that's repressive tolerance. It's okay for me, but not for thee. It's okay for my guy and my party, but not for your guy and your party to do it. Like, and we're seeing this, and it's programmed. Like, what people don't understand is people are programmed as groups and like thinking, and I watch it when we're in the dinners and stuff. Like they say certain words, and you can see like little light, like certain people's lights go on until somebody in the crowd says something like, "Well, you said this, but then you did this," and then you can see, or someone questions or pushes them on the topic, and they show that they don't actually, like they're not, they don't actually really stand where they say they stand or know what they, and then you can start to see some of that control go away. But in most times, if no one says anything, you can see they'll hit these certain like keys, and then everybody be like bebopping and pay the like. It's crazy, but people are programmed. It's all about the group and to move in groups. And like one of the things that I struggle with is like I like to mind my own business most of the time, and I know that if like it's much harder to deprogram people and teach them to think for themselves than it is to do the right to hit the cues and and shift the group towards you, like to use the manipulation, right, that's been programmed into them. If you start using those cues and shifting the group, like that's much easier than trying to deprogram people and get them to think for themselves and move towards freedom on their own. Like, but I just don't have a desire to manipulate people like that. Like, but I watch people do it all the time, and people are way too happy to oblige them and just go along with it. Um, yeah, and like so, here's another example of like these people. This is the Gulag Archipelago, and I'm gonna read about the Loyalist. And these are Trumpers. These are the Marxist Americans, the kids who are destroying their freedoms for like a socialist, a bigger government control, thinking they're gonna get like, oh, it's gonna be fair. It's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. It's gonna be unfair. So, um, let's see. Chapter 11, The Loyalist. We shall concern ourselves particularly with those Orthodox communists who made a display of their ideology orthodoxy, first to the interrogator, then to the prison cells, and then in camp to all and everyone, and now recall their camp past in this light. By a strange selective process, none of them will be sloggers. Such people ordinarily had held big jobs before their arrest and had an enviable situation. And in camp, they found it hardest of all to reconcile themselves to extinction, and they fought fiercest of all to rise above the universal zero. In this category were all the interrogators, prosecutors, judges, and camp officials who had landed behind bars, and all the theoreticians, dogmatists, and loudmouths. We we had to understand them, or we have to understand them, and we won't scoff at them. It was painful for them to fall. When you cut down trees, the chips will fly, was the cheerful proverb of justification. And then suddenly they themselves were chopped off with all the other chips. To say that things were painful for them is to say almost nothing. They were incapable of assimilating such a blow, such a downfall, and from their own people too, from their dear party, and from all appearances for nothing at all. After all, they had been guilty of nothing as far as the party was concerned, nothing at all. And actually, I'm gonna stop here, pause here. Like Marjorie, is it Marjorie Taylor Greene or whatever? Um, whatever. Uh, it's funny because she supported Trump, and she said that like I supported Trump, but it wasn't until I don't know if it's Epstein thing or what, but it wasn't until she had went against it that all of a sudden she became uh, she got on the political chopping block, right? Um, like that's a perfect example of this. Only at least for this now, it's political. It's just political. In the future, if it gets worse, like we keep heading down this and we allow them to push, like it's gonna be it'll be a lot different. Um, it was painful for them to such a degree that it was considered taboo among them, uncomradely, to ask, "What are you in prison for?" The only squeamish generation of prisoners. The rest of us in 1945, with tongues hanging out, used to recount our arrests, couldn't wait to tell the story to everyone, every chance newcomer we met, and to the whole cell as if it were an anecdote, which I would say, like, the rest of us, are just everyone, normal people. Like, if you think about, like, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and so on, the ones that were in these, they were on the right, and then as soon as they started questioning the tiny hat people or other things the government did, they all of a sudden, they got kicked out, and now they're supposed to be fringe or what, but they're really not that fringe. Like they're actually like 90s like they're really not um that out there. I mean, yeah, but it's like I find it funny that they talk about what happened to them, and now it's not even like it's not a stigma for them. It's like, oh yeah, whereas those who support whether it's Biden or Trump and they get thrown under the bus, like you don't really see them talking about it as like a badge. Like you can see that they're truly hurt. They're truly hurt. Um, Here's the sort of people they were. Oh, I'm about to butcher these names. Olga Slyozberg. I don't know. It's some husband had already been arrested, and they had come to carry out a search and arrest her. The search lasted 4 hours, and she spent those 4 hours sorting out the minutes of the Congress of Stakhanovitz of the bristle and brush industry, of which she had been the secretary until the previous day. The incomplete state of minutes troubled her more than her children, whom she was leaving forever. Even the interrogator conducting the search, could not resist telling her, "Come on now, say farewell to your children." Here's the sort of people they were. A letter from her 15-year-old daughter came to Yelizaveta Tasvakova in the Kazan prison for long-term prisoners. "Mama, tell me, write to me. Are you guilty or not? I hope you weren't guilty, because then I won't join the Komoslomo or Consumo. I won't buy the Consumo. I don't know. And I won't forgive them because of you. But if you are guilty, I won't write you anymore and will hate you." And the mother was stricken by remorse in her damp grave-like cell with its dim little light lamp. How could her daughter live without the consumo? How could she be permitted to hate Soviet power? Better that she should hate me. And she wrote, "I'm guilty. Enter the consumo." Hark, how could it be anything but hard? It was more than the human heart could bear to fall beneath the beloved axe, than to have to justify its wisdom. But this is the price a man pays for entrusting his God-given soul to human dogma. Even today, any Orthodox communist will affirm that Tasvakova acted correctly. Even today, they cannot be convinced that this is precisely the perversion of small forces. And this is how the Trumps like a lot of Trumpists actually think, and the left. They have a lot of similarities. I've argued with both, and they're almost identical. They're just on different sides, right? They don't really think. They toe the party line on both sides, and how could, because and the funny thing is even when I would show Second Amendment, how he said one thing and then did another, and then you can show them the evidence and stuff like that, how he's the one that rushed the jabs, the first shutdowns, the whole thing started under Trump, that whole process, and a lot of it, Biden just continued. But the process was, and the outline was started by the Trump administration, and the Trump was proud about the jabs and all that stuff that he did, the trust in Fauci and all this, for a long time. He's only recently tweeted and questioned it, but he was, before he even ran, he was still proud of the jab thing and the shutdown. Crazy. The party played in that. And then Trumpers still voted for him. They didn't even it doesn't even blink an eye that he, which is this is the exact same kind of derangement. I mean, anyways. And why, people might ask, well, why are you so hard on the Trump? I'm hard on the left too. It's just right now it's the Trump administration in power, and I don't have to warn people about Marxists. I do have to warn people about the stuff that the Trump administration is doing, and because a lot of people don't know, and then you start showing them, and they're like, man, I didn't know that was going on, and it starts to change their mind. I've seen lots of people change their mind. They started out arguing with me, and then I showed them the stuff, and then they seen, and they freed themselves, and that, because people are well, why are you posting this stuff? Why are you saying, because I want to free people. That's the whole point of this, because I want freedom, and the only way for us to have freedom is to call out when the government and stuff move towards slavery, or when they start building the cages, which the Trump administration is still taking the steps to build the cages, and most people, a lot of people are thinking oh, it's freedom, and Like, no, it's not freedom. Like, it's just your guy in power. Like, he's gonna repeal certain things, or he's gonna try and, like, like you get the the immigration thing, but like, what else do you get? And it's like, eh, eh. You got the FBI covering up stuff, alleged, like, uh, blocking investigations into foreign involvement into the Charlie Kirk thing. You got you know, allegedly, like, covering up the Epstein covering for the Epstein file, saying that, oh, like, that was it. There's no videos and all this, and then you got that guy on tape, like one of the FBI agents, saying, "Oh yeah, we got stuff. We got tons of stuff." Like, um, and it's funny. It's just funny to watch Trumpers do backflips to cover for it, and it's like, it makes me mad because I realize, because a lot of the old, especially the older ones, like, they're the very reason why we don't have freedom. Like, they're how we got here. They fell asleep at the wheel, and they're more worried about their Social Security than they were about their kids. Right, when their kids were in school being taught by Marxists, or being taught Marxist principles, not being taught history, not being taught about their political, like, not paying attention to that stuff. They were worried about Social Security, right? Like, and they're still worried about Social Security, because now they're like, their time is almost done. They're just worried about getting that check, even at the expense of the generations, like, that's gonna come after them. Like, and then when the administration says, oh, well, like, in order for us to be able to fund, to keep funding, Social Security now, we got to move the date back to like 70, so that even less people are going to be able to ever, like, get it, but at least the people who are on it now will still be able to get it. Like, fuck y'all. Like, it's so, like, man, you guys are supposed to be sacrificing for us. Like, should have been sacrificing for us to make sure that we had the freedom, like, and not government systems. Government programs and government assistance is not freedom. It's slavery. Like, you could make the same argument for an actual slave. Oh, he's fed. He's got a house over his head. He doesn't have to worry about, like, taking care of himself. Everything's taken care of for him. Like, he's got a job. Like, it's this. Oh my gosh. I don't know, but I'm gonna continue. Let's see. Even today, any Orthodox communist will affirm that, that she did the right thing. Let's see. Even today, they cannot be convinced that this is precisely the perversion of small forces that the mother prevented her daughter and harmed her soul. Here's the sort of people they were. YT gave sincere testimony against her husband, anything to aid the party. Oh, how one could pity them if, at least now, they had come to comprehend their former wretchedness. This whole chapter could have been written quite differently if today, at least, they had forsaken their earlier views. Loyalty, and in our view, it's just plain pig-headedness. These devotees of the theory of development construed loyalty to that development to mean renunciation of any personal development whatsoever. Oh. As Nikolai Adamovich Valenchik said, after serving 17 years, we believed in the party, and we were not mistaken. Is this loyalty or pig-headedness? No, it was not for show, and not out of hypocrisy that they argued in cells in defense of all the government's actions. They needed ideological arguments in order to hold on to a sense of their own righteousness. Otherwise, insanity was not far off. And I think that that's a lot of what we're seeing with the Trumpers, because they voted for him, and even, like, they got the one thing, but now as it's starting to going on, and we're starting to see that things are falling off, and that we didn't get smaller government. We got a lot bigger government. We see president partying with the tiny hats, and like I had said something, like I had made a joke. It was the video. It really wasn't even about Trump, but it was a video of Trump with the hats and over there in Israel doing the thing that a lot of the candidates do when they go over there and visit Israel and they take the APEC or whatever, and they go over there and but it was that, and it was added to music, and I was like, I basically put, it was a joke. I was like, I won't, like, I'm not gonna tell anyone when I sell out to, to Israel, but there will be signs. But like, and I was just joking, and I it was Trump in there, but I wasn't thinking like I wasn't trying to point to Trump. But then, now that I think about it, like it was out. But so and they got a bunch of people got fired, and one was like, oh, his son-in-law is Israel, like, so he's got a son-in-law that's Jewish, and I'm like, okay, now let's flip. So basically saying that him doing that like is okay because his son-in-law, right? And I'm like, well, what if I was president, or a politician or something like that, and I was president, and my son-in-law was Muslim, and I started, I took a trip over to Saudi Arabia or Iran or something, and I put on their, I wear the Muslim dress. I did the 5 prayers over there with them, and then I pledged to, if I would have pledged money that the United States government's gonna send you money for defense from the tiny hat people that keep bombing you, right? It's like, that wouldn't alarm you, like it does, and it's funny. And then she was like, oh, you're reaching, and I'm like, like, no, that's exactly what's happened. Like, our Congress people are bought out by like AIPAC, or like Israel does that, and then they send them over there, they put them in compromised positions, and then they blackmail them as well. And I mean, that's kind of what people assume or say was the purpose of Epstein. Like, he would get dirt and put, basically allow, like, provide the services for, like, the pedophile services for candidates, get it on video, and then use it to blackmail them and stuff. For Israel. And then, of course, that is a national security thing, because they're compromised and being controlled by a foreign country based off of blackmail. If that is the case. Like I said, allegedly. The proof hasn't been 100% proven, but if you look at all the evidence for it, it's pretty convincing. Yeah. But yeah, like, that is one of the things I let's see, so yeah, I did that one. So there's one more video, last one. If you made it this far, congratulations. But and this is more about the how the DOJ is betraying us on the Second Amendment and going against the Second Amendment and reinforcing what's already unconstitutional. They say it's a tax, but if it regulates and bars people from being able to get things, to get weapons and stuff like that, it prices people out. Like, the tax it's essentially is gun control, and it's they're like, oh, well, Congress has commerce, and like, no, it's used to control guns, and I bet you the founders would be like, that's an abuse. But they do it because not enough people speak up or push back or are willing to do what it takes to get it repealed and to get them to pay attention. And that, I mean, like, whether it's protesting, whether it's voting everybody out, I don't know, because voting doesn't seem to have much effect anymore, because they say they promise a lot, and they do very little of what they promise. They also often do the opposite. So, yeah, but all right, here we go. We're gonna just go ahead and then I'll be.
Let's spend a few minutes, let's get you educated, and let's talk about DOJ's Second Amendment betrayal. Okay, America, we've talked about this case a couple of times before, and I will take you back to November 12th. On November 12th, we ended up doing this video right here about a pretty direct letter sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi by Representative Andrew Clyde and many other members of Congress, where they made it very clear to Attorney General Bondi, hey, by the way, when we took these items, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, any other weapon and suppressors, down to $0 taxation, we meant for y'all to get rid of the registration. Well, apparently, Attorney General Bondi doesn't give two you-know-whats, because in response to a summary judgment motion, in the case of Silencer Shop Foundation versus ATF, this is a case that's brought in the Northern District of Texas. There are cross motions for summary judgment. What has the United States Department of Justice done, even with the directives of Congress? Well, they have filed a motion in opposition to the summary judgment and moved for their own summary judgment. Not uncommon from a procedural standpoint. Now, I know here at Washington Gun Law, we try to pride ourselves on the fact that we don't tell you how to think, we just give you all the stuff to think about. And we're going to try to be consistent with that today. However, I will say that for many of you, you will find this to be immensely disappointing, maybe even infuriating, and I get where you're coming from. And for those out there who think that this particular administration and this particular Department of Justice can do no wrong, I will be very, very interested to see how it is that you justify this. Okay, we're going to take you through and kind of...
I just want to point out that most sane thinking people realize that. See how we point out there's people who think they can do no wrong. Like, these are the Trumpers. These are the hardcore factionists that we see, that like sane thinking people see, and we look at you like, why are you so retarded? Why are you so stupid? Like, you're selling out your freedoms. You're allowing people to go back on promises. You're allowing people, like, it's ridiculous. But again, that's how we got here. Probably those same people, a lot of those same people probably voted for Bush. So, yeah. But just notice that that he realizes that that the same people see this, that like you're retarded when just blindly support everything someone does, and you write off any little thing that they or any big thing, little thing or big thing, you write it off and minimize it and continue to support.
Rapid fire fashion here, and you can decide what, if any, parts of this completely infuriates you. Now, Department of Justice starts off by saying, hey, listen, this is a facial challenge to the statute, which is a pretty lofty burden. That is true. So they kind of started off soft this way. Plaintiffs facially challenge the constitutionality of certain NFA requirements. To succeed, plaintiffs must overcome the presumption of constitutionality that attaches to every act of Congress. Judging the constitutionality of an act of Congress is the gravest and most delicate duty that this court is called on to perform. Moreover, facial challenges are the most difficult challenge to mount successfully, and for a host of good reasons. And all of that technically is true. Now, this premise of $0 taxation means zero registration. Well, the Department of Justice doesn't buy off on that at all, you see, because what they're saying is that even though individuals may not be getting taxed on these items anymore, doesn't mean that there's not tax revenue being generated. And therefore, in the eyes of the Department of Justice, moving down to $0 taxation is irrelevant. This is how they put it. While the big beautiful bill zeroed out NFA's making and transfer taxes on short barrel rifles and shotguns, suppressors, and AOWs, the NFA still imposes a tax, namely the special occupational tax, on businesses that import, manufacture, or deal in these firearms. These firearms thus do produce federal tax revenue, and the challenged NFA's requirements support the collection of that revenue. that is a valid exercise of Congress's taxing power. So what the Department of Justice is saying here is that since we still have a taxable reason by which we need to monitor manufacturers and importers and retailers and all that, the burden of that should be borne by, that's right, the end-use consumer. And it would appear that the Department of Justice says that, listen, anytime there's any kind of federal oversight, we can really monitor and restrict in any way necessary as far as registration requirements and things like that go. They go through a very long diatribe about drug laws and narcotic laws, and ultimately they draw the connection this way. This bill follows the plan of the Harrison Anti-Narcotic Act, allowing sales of certain drugs only by registered dealers and only to patients who had valid prescriptions. The court explained that they served a revenue-raising purpose because they kept the traffic in the regulated drugs above board and subject to inspection by those authorized to collect the revenue, and diminish the opportunity of unauthorized persons to obtain the drugs and sell them clandestinely without paying the tax imposed by the act. Now, if that is the position of the Department of Justice, how much federal regulation could then be done on any items that are placed into the stream of commerce, in particular, what could be done on firearms? And for some reason, the Department of Justice believes that the manner in which these firearms are traced all the way back to its origin needs to be entirely different than any other type of firearm, because they argue similar reasoning is mirrored in other cases, wherein courts found that the NFA's requirement and prohibitions on the end purchaser or possessor allows the government to determine who was further up the chain of possession and thus who owes taxes, and thereby incentivize manufacturers, distributors, and dealers of NFA firearms to pay their applicable tax. And so apparently the only way that the IRS is capable of collecting that tax is to put all of the burden on the consumer. So is it about traceability? Is it about taxation? Which one is it? Well, DOJ is all over the board.
Now, if you're a two-way guy, like you're probably flipping out. If you didn't see this already, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have already watched it, but you see this administration is just as, like they're, people say this is one of the most pro-gun or pro-Second Amendment, but like not really. They do like little things, but then while you're looking at this, they're in the background, like cutting the legs out, right? So, like, and I just, that was one of my big criticism of his first term is his Second Amendment policies, like, or his anti-Second Amendment policies, and versus what he promised, right? So it's disappointing, but you know, Trumpers gonna Trump. It's gay.
But they continue to argue in this fashion. The challenge NFA requirements continue to serve the same revenue-raising purposes. As ATF explains, the agency reviews every application to make or transfer an NFA firearm to ensure, among many things, that any qualified manufacturer, distributor, or dealer that is associated with the relevant firearm has paid their special occupational tax. But DOJ really believes that for whatever reason, despite the fact that we have all sorts of federal safeguards in place for the purchase of any other non-apex predator firearm, that these need a higher level of accountability, again, to be borne by the consumer or otherwise the lawful and responsible gun-owning American. In that way, the NFA's registration and approval requirements aid in preventing the circumvention of the NFA, including its requirements that those who are engaged in the business of NFA firearms pay the special occupational tax. And, for a reason courts have repeatedly explained, the NFA's prohibitions support the special occupational taxes enforcement by making it unlawful to circumvent these requirements. Now, you will recall that one of the main arguments is, hey, listen, now that the taxation has been removed, we have exceeded Congress's taxation authority. That may be the case, but the Department of Justice believes it doesn't matter. Why? Because can you hear that big sucking sound right now? That big sucking sound is the Commerce Clause. And this Department of Justice believes that the Commerce Clause gives Congress just about the authority to do anything they want. Apart from the taxing power, Congress has the authority to enact the challenge NFA requirements under the Commerce Clause. Plaintiff's arguments to the contrary rest on a cramped view of Congress's authority that cannot be squared with binding precedent and a view of the NFA that denies the reality that the NFA directly regulates interstate commerce in firearms. Moreover, they
Like, it's just like the same arguments as the last, like, and like I'd say, I mean, yeah, like the big, like if you're a Trumper and you know you see this, I have to argue that the big sucking sound is something else. Your loyalty to treason, and stuff. Trying to keep it somewhat PG, but like yeah, like you guys are trash, like the communists and the left. Like I can't.
They believe with that power, Congress may regulate the channels of interstate commerce, the instrumentalities of interstate commerce, and the persons or things in interstate commerce, and activities that substantially affect interstate commerce. And when you think about it, just about anything that is placed into the stream of commerce will in some way affect interstate commerce under the view of the Department of Justice. And I can assure you there are many on the political left who also believe that that literally gives Congress the authority to regulate everything. In fact, DOJ says it themselves. In these ways, the NFA regulates the ingredients of interstate commerce itself. Now, normally, when we talk about this phenomenon, we're talking about some court that's upheld a ban. But in this case, I want you to know that the United States Department of Justice has delivered its own dose of
"You got Rahimi'd,"
because they make this exact argument right here. As the Supreme Court explained in Rahimi, in analyzing a facial constitutional challenge to a federal statute, a court should consider the circumstances in which the statute is most likely to be constitutional instead of focusing on hypothetical scenarios where the statute might raise constitutional concerns. So, what the Department of Justice is arguing is that with the watered-down standards like Rahimi and the fact that the Commerce Clause basically is this gigantic vacuum that allows Congress to suck up whatever it wants, this is what the NFA is all about in the eyes of this particular Department of Justice. Those same principles amply support the NFA requirement challenged here. The NFA regulates a class of activities that are quintessentially economic: the manufacture, distribution, sale, and possession of weapons that, in Congress's judgment, are particularly susceptible to criminal misuse. If that is the standard by which we can allow Congress to just start regulating arms in all sorts of ridiculous manners, particularly susceptible to criminal misuse, what can be done with the handgun? Now, for those of you who've been geeking out on this issue, you will know there's this case out there, Sunzinski, that basically upheld the NFA as part of Congress's taxing power. And that has been the big argument advanced by the petitioners and plaintiffs in these cases that, hey, that's no longer good case law. Where the Department of Justice is coming down is it's irrelevant. Tax schmacks. It doesn't matter. Why is it? Well, again, it's the Commerce Clause. This is how DOJ sees it.
Old, yeah. So you see, like, it's the same stuff. It's like they're saying the same stuff they're going against. They're still keeping the gun control in place. This is a perfect time when they could actually strike a blow, and the Trump administration is deciding to do the opposite thing and fight for it. And you're like, oh well, that doesn't, like, no, that's Trump. Like, that's what they're doing. And you guys are supporting this, so it is what it is.
In fact, the Fifth Circuit has already rejected that view of Sunzinski, holding that although the NFA was originally upheld under Congress's taxing power, no one could seriously contend that the act could not also be upheld under Congress's power to regulate interstate commerce. All right, and then finally, as you know, there were traditional Second Amendment arguments made, which is now that they don't have the taxing power, we're going to have to do a regular Second Amendment analysis, and we're going to do that. We're going to find that there's no historical analogs, and therefore this is completely unconstitutional under the Second Amendment. The Department of Justice says, no, it's not true at all. No, there's actually case law out there that says everything we're doing is totally okay. This is their argument. First, the Supreme Court decision in United States v. Miller and District of Columbia v. Heller foreclosed plaintiff's Second Amendment claim insofar as it pertains to short-barrel shotguns and rifles. In Miller, which plaintiffs failed to cite, the Supreme Court upheld the NFA's regulation of short-barrel shotguns, holding that the Second Amendment does not guarantee the right to possess such weapons. So that's how they justify the regulations of short-barrel rifles and shotguns. For any other weapon, AOWs, they basically say, hey, listen, if you take a look at technologically what's happening with those and what happens with a short-barrel shotgun, it's really one and the same. And for that reason, that definition captures, among other things, weapons that are similar to short-barrel shotguns and possess the same characteristics that make short-barrel shotguns uniquely susceptible to criminal misuse. That
I forgot to unmute it. Well, yeah. But yeah, all I was saying was, summing it up, is that you have to go back and read the Constitution. Most people don't know the Constitution. The federal government doesn't have power to do all this stuff. And Yeah, and if you read it, the people who are stopping us from having freedom are the Trumpers, are the Marxists, are the people who don't know these things, and that they continue to allow people to restrict their rights, either support people restricting their rights, like slaves, or they say nothing, like, I mean, people who support like house slaves, people who don't, like field slaves, they're just quiet, they go along with it, they do, but and they make us free people, the people who want to be free, they look down on us, and we're stuck like going against, we're just stuck in between them and slavery. So, but we're not quiet. Like, when we speak up, they talk about us. So both sides tell us to hush up because we talk about their guy, but at the end of the day, we're the only ones pushing for freedom. Yeah. Shalom, and have a good day.